PE teacher kept making fun of me because I was not athletic, and I made him vomit from exhaustion in front of the whole class. By user Matajigo. This was well over a decade ago, but I wanted to share. I was born with a congenital heart disease and had surgery as a kid. I am completely okay, but sports was obviously not my thing. I was small, skinny and clumsy because I never really could do the typical outdoor stuff like most kids. Got teased and bullied and all that. Typical for a geeky kid who doesn't excel with a football. In high school, we had a mildly problematic PE teacher, a typical sports dude who would make fun of the slower kids. I still remember how he ordered my overweight friend to do a gymnastics jump from a trampoline over a stool, which he obviously couldn't do, and he fell so hard he cracked his head. I found peace with myself long before and mostly didn't care and just took it. But it was stupid, and I hated how he always encouraged the jock culture of making fun of the nerds. We would constantly do basketball or soccer/football. Thing about my specific condition is I don't do explosive and reactive sports at all, so I would have to sit down every few minutes to catch my breath. You would think what's wrong with that, but I was shamed about being the weakest of the class every week. I like sports though. A lot. I was just always told by my parents and doctors to take it easy, and growing up I noticed I had no problem whatsoever with endurance and steady, long-distance efforts. As long as I don't go into red, I could keep it up for quite a while. So it's not a surprise I fell in love with road cycling when I first saw the Tour de France on TV. I was super skinny, couldn't sprint, but I could climb a long mountain any day, pacing myself and blowing nearly anyone off my wheel on endurance. I got myself a road bike and never told anyone at school about my rides. Here comes the revenge. We had a class sports day, and there was a bus arranged to take us to the top of a mountain about an hour away, where we were to go on a hike. Our PE teacher said that if anyone wants, he will cycle up there and we could join him on the climb instead of the hike. I was the only one to volunteer. He was surprised and commented something to the effect of keeping up and not gonna wait for you, but I insisted. He couldn't know I was more than capable to climb that mountain because he only saw me struggling with sports with him. He also couldn't know that was my home hill, literally starting a kilometer from my house. I did that climb 100 plus times and knew it blind, knew my pacing, and while I was irritated to Pogacar, I knew I could probably drop my PE teacher at well there. For cyclists out there, the climb is 125 km, 69% gradient, super regular. For non-cyclists, a perfect climb for a lightweight rider with good pacing and stamina. So the day arrives and I did my warm-up, nutrition and everything as if it was a life or death mountaintop time trial, and rock up at the school in my full racing kit and my racing bike. I was 17, weighed 55 and totally prepared. He was a typical middle-aged overconfident ex-soccer player, probably weighing 90 on a standard mountain bike. Super perfect situation. He sets a relatively hard pace on the Tenkan flat before the climb, and I don't speak or take the front. I take my good time to get back on his wheel after intersections, and he probably thinks he will drop me the second we start going uphill. Then the climb starts and it becomes very apparent to me, but not to him, that he is near his limit, but that it is at least 5 km/h slower than what I could do on that mountain. But I don't attack him. That would not be satisfying. Instead, I start bantering how someone is getting dropped today, and it would be embarrassing if the whole class sees how I beat him. And then I take over the pace and slowly start turning the screw on him. I went only a little faster. Then a bit more. I knew after about 3 km he was in the red. So I ease off, keeping him just slightly over his limit for the next half an hour. I wanted to make him suffer, but without dropping him. I let him recover for a tiny bit if he starts looking too bad, but then I would slowly push the tempo up to make it as painful to him as possible. It was Tour de France level mind games. I don't think I've ever enjoyed myself on my bike more. We made it near the top together and I let it rip on the last 300 m or so, and it was that typical humiliation attack every amateur group ride cyclist knows. He dropped like a stone. I got my revenge and was very happy with myself. He said something about his heavy bike and I kept my mouth shut. But it got better. On the top he was clearly dead. So much so he had to vomit in the parking lot, and even if only a few classmates saw it, everyone knew. He had to sit out the hike after, and I just quietly sat there with him because I didn't need to do the hike like he promised, and just looked at him enjoying the sweet revenge. I didn't say anything after that, nor did he. He never made any comments to me in PE class again. Lesson, don't bully your students, they might surprise you. Teacher called me Catherine because she couldn't bother to learn how to pronounce my name, so I called her by her first name for the rest of the year. Just quick note, I did post this in r/traumatize them back, but I could not for the life of me figure out how to cross-post a mobile web, so this is copy-pasted. In 6th grade, I had this math teacher named Miss White who was pretty strict. Our school was honestly very diverse, but she was very, as her name suggests, white. I have a pretty difficult name to say as it is Hawaiian. I am half Japanese, half white, but both sides lived in Hawaii for 3+ generations. My name is Kauai. It looks daunting, but that's just Kau'i. So honestly not very difficult, IMO. Anyway, a Miss White stumbled on my name when she read attendance, so I did the usual O-S pronounced. You know what she did? She literally went, I'll call you Catherine. Let me tell you, I was flabbergasted. Like it was a private, very diverse school, and I had never had this happen. Teachers had horribly mispronounced my name, but this was definitely new. Also, no offense to any Catherines, but I loved my name and it is a lot of meaning to my family, and TBH it sounds cooler than Catherine, take no offense please. I was so surprised that for the first 2 weeks I kinda just let it happen. But at some point it was just irking me because she made no effort to learn how to say my name. I never told her she could call me Catherine, and on top of that, she could even ask me for a nickname or my middle name or something. So I started calling her by her first name, Jessica. She was the kind of teacher who no one called by her first name. Even the other teachers called her Miss White. I had to look in the yearbook from the year before to find it. But from that day on, she was Jessica. And when that didn't make her mad enough, she was Jessie, or Jess, or JJ, or any other nicknames I could think of. She never yelled at me or anything, she just corrected me and said to Miss White, and then I would ignore it. For example, Jessica, that's a Miss White. The Jessica, I don't get number 3, can you explain? She never lost her temper but was always annoyed lol. She called me Catherine for the rest of the year, so not the most satisfying story, but I was happy with that revenge. Miss White apparently got fired 2 years later for microaggressions towards students of color, and honestly, I am not surprised. I just wanted to share this story because I figured y'all would enjoy it. Pasting this edit and see of the amount of comments I am getting lol. Here you go. Hey, I am getting a lot of confusion about the pronunciation of my name. Many comments are very kind and just saying how they originally thought it was pronounced like Mary. Others are telling me I pronounced my name wrong. I'd command, but I'll do my best to explain some basics for why all. My name is Kauai. In Hawaiian, each vowel is pronounced, none are silent. However, native speakers tend to blend them together. For example, a plus U would make an AU sound. If you say that fast, it sounds like oath. So when a native speaker says my name, it may sound like Kauai, very similar to Maui. However, there is a difference because really the O is still pronounced a little more. In addition, one difference between Kauai and Maui is the okina, the little apostrophe thingy. In reality, it is a slightly different symbol, but I am lazy. This basically counts as a consonant and it's a little pause. So basically the O and I sounds do not merge together because they are separated by the okina. Now, why can't you just say Kauai? Good question. You can. I'll still respond. But basically you are saying my name as if it has no okina when it does. Not a big deal. But that is the difference. Hawaii. Also, there are some people saying I am wrong because Hawaii isn't pronounced Hawaii. True, it isn't. The traditional spelling is Hawaii and pronunciation is Hawaii. Basically, the and the H merge, the W and the I merge, the W makes a V sound since it is surrounded by vowels, and then we have an okina and an I. Hence Hawaii. Why it is spelled and pronounced differently normally is BC it is the anglicized version. Almost same spelling, just no okina, and the W is seen as making the W sound since that is how it is in English. I am not all knowing, I don't even speak Hawaiian, I just know some basic facts, but feel free to ask me more questions, hope this helps. Revenge against the couple who stole out spot on vacation by user heavy pool 4886. Wife and I were on vacation at a Caribbean resort. It wasn't very crowded. We picked out a couple of nice lounges and spent most of the week there with no issues. Another couple showed up a few days before we were scheduled to leave. Wife caught them looking at us a few times over a couple of days. Our last morning, They put their shit on our loungers before we got there, then didn't show up until noon. The spot was nice because it was in the shade when it got hot and it was close to the bar. We found another spot. Later, after they arrived and we saw who it was, my wife said they stole our spot on purpose. Confirmed when my wife was in the water and saw them walk by me in our new, less awesome spot. They looked at me and started laughing. We were leaving the next day. We went down very early, spread fresh towels on the loungers, put fresh folded towels down, and left our leftover scent and lotion and our inflatable floats on the loungers. Hope they spent all day waiting to see who stole the spot. Entitled Rich Lady by user World Critic 589. I walked into a hotel lobby once to see an older lady lecturing the young front desk clerk because her premier parking spot was taken. She explained how it had been promised her and her car group that they could have the prime parking spots because their car sure was important in that town. Front desk kid did his best to calm her, but couldn't he do anything about the open, non-reserved spaces not being available? Angry lady turned to me with the expectation that I would agree with her that she should have her precious parking spots. She said it needed to be fixed as she turned to me for support. I responded with "seems to me like you were feeling pretty entitled." She stormed out of the office and the kid was able to move on with his job. I came back in a 3-piece suit by user Rocket Partwell. When I was in college, I worked for a large video rental company in the US Northeast as an assistant manager of a store that staffed 7 people. It was not a crazy busy place, and this was the dying days of video rental, so circa 2011-12 or so. I worked there 40 hours a week, so I was very familiar with all of the regulars that would come in and out. Anyway, the company had a no jeans dress code policy. There was no uniform, just requirements being a collared shirt and not jeans. In practice, employees wore jeans with a polo or button down all of the time with no issue. One day I went to work a 4 p.m. midnight shift at the store, after having been in class/on campus from like 9:30 am to 12 p.m. I wore jeans and a button down to school that day so I could go right to work after class. I got there and punched in and was surprised by the fact that our district manager was visiting our store that day. And he decided he needed to make an issue over my jeans. He said pulled me aside as I was working about 30 minutes 45 minutes into my shift and reprimanded me about violating the no jeans policy. I told him I was sorry, people wear jeans here all the time, I was in school all day. He insisted that I go home and change my pants if I wanted to complete my shift, and as I was the only person scheduled to be working from 6 p.m. midnight, basically so the store could still operate and I could get paid. I told him, "You realize that my house is at least a 15-minute drive away. That means I will be gone for a minimum 45 minutes, 60 minutes for me to drive home, change, and drive back, all while he would be the only person working at the store." He insisted in no jeans. So I drove home, and I was so angry about this tiny bullshit and power play this guy was making on me that I got to my apartment and decided to change into the absolute fanciest thing I owned at the time. A 3-piece blue suit with a starched white shirt and striped yellow tie. The shirt was even French cuffed, so I wore the fancy cufflinks I'd gotten from my grandfather's funeral. I put on my nicest cologne, biggest watch, clickest shoes, and walked right back into that family video looking like I was about to get married. My boss saw me immediately, and he stifled a laugh or rolled his eyes, but he didn't say a single word to me for the next 2 hours that he was there watching me do my job outside of a thank you. I had regulars asking me, "Why are you so dressed up to date?" or "Wow, you look nice today," and all I said back to them was, "Well, I take this job very seriously, and if you want to rent movies in a respectful way, you've got to look the part." I'd if he hated me or respected me for it, but we literally never spoke again until he got transferred to a different district a few months later.